Genesis 4:15. To God, He is the only one who can change you from the inside out. Open your heart, taking with them all the spoils of war and the food supply. They also captured Lot, Abraham's nephew who lived in Sodom, and carried off everything he owned. But one of Lot's men escaped and reported everything to Abram. The Hebrew, who was living near the oak grove, belonged to Mamre, and Amorite. Mamre, and his relatives Eshcol, and Aner were Abraham's allies. When Abram heard that his nephew Lot had been captured, he mobilized the 318 trained men who had been born into his household. Then he pursued Chedorlaomer's army until he caught up with them at Dan. There he divided his men and attacked during the night. The army fled, but Abram chased them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. Abram recovered all the goods that had been taken, and he brought his nephew back with his possessions and all the women and other captives. After Abram returns from his victory over Chedorlaomer, and his allies, the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley, and Melchizedek, the king of Salem, and a priest of God Most High, brought Abram some bread and wine. Melchizedek blessed Abram with this blessing. Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has defeated your enemies for you. Then Abram gave Melchizedek a tenth of all the goods he had recovered. The king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give back my people who were captured, but you may keep for yourself all the goods you have recovered." Abram replied to the king of Sodom, "I solemnly swear to the Lord God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will not take so much as a single thread or sandal thong from what belongs to you. Otherwise, you might say, I'm the one who made Abram rich. I will accept only what my young warriors have already eaten. And I request that you give a fair share of the goods to my allies, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre." Sometime later, the Lord spoke to Abram in a vision and said to him, "Do not be afraid, Abram, for I will protect you, and your reward will be great." Let's get this out of the way. And your reward will be great. But Abram replied, "O sovereign Lord, what good are all your blessings when I don't even have a son? Since you've given me no children, Eliezer of Damascus, a servant in my household, will inherit all my wealth. You have given me no descendants of my own, so one of my servants will be my heir." Then the Lord said to him, "No, your servant will not be your heir, for you will have a son of your own who will be your heir." Then the Lord took Abram outside and said to him, "Look up in the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have." That's beautiful. And Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord counted him as righteous because of his faith. Then the Lord told him, I am the Lord who brought you out of your Chaldeans to give you this land of your possession. But Abram replied, O sovereign Lord, how can I be sure that I will actually possess it? The Lord told him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. So Abram presented all of these to him and killed them. Then he cut each animal down the middle and laid the halves side by side. He did not, however, cut the birds in half. Some vultures swooped down to eat the carcasses, but Abram chased them away. As the sun was going down, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a terrifying darkness came down over him. Then the Lord said to Abram, you can be sure that your descendants will be strangers in a foreign land, where they will be oppressed as slaves for 400 years. But I will punish the nation that enslaves them, and in the end, they will come away with great wealth. Now, for some reason, that feels like this generation of Black American people. Wow. Okay. As for you, you will die in peace and be buried at a ripe old age. After 4 generations, your descendants will return here to this land. For the sins of Amorites do not yet warrant their destruction. After the sun went down and darkness fell, Abram saw a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch pass between the halves of the carcasses. So the Lord made a covenant with Abram that day and said, I have given you this land to your descendants all the way from the border of Egypt to the great Euphrates River, the land now occupied by the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Raphites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. The birth of Ishmael. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had not been able to bear children for him, but she had an Egyptian servant named Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, the Lord has prevented me from having children. Go and sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can have children through her. And Abram agreed with Sarai's proposal. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian servant, and gave her to Abram's wife. Gave her to Abram as a wife. This happened 10 years after Abram had settled in the land of Canaan. So Abram had sexual relation with Hagar, and she became pregnant. When Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to treat her mistress, Sarai, with contempt. Then Sarai said to Abram, this is all your fault. I put my servant into your arms, but now that she's pregnant, she treats me with contempt. The Lord will show who's wrong, you or me. Sarai, this was your idea, Buki. Abram replied, look, she is your servant, so deal with her as you see fit. Then Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she finally ran away. The angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness along the road to Shur. The angel said to Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from, and where are you going? I am running away from my mistress, Sarai said. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her authority. Then he said, I will give you more descendants than you can count. And the angels also said, you are now pregnant and will give birth to a son. You are to name him Ishmael, which means God hears. Ishmael. Okay. For the Lord has heard your cry of distress. This son of yours will be a wild man, as untamed as a wild donkey. He will raise his first fist against everyone, and everyone will be against him. Yes, he will live in open hostility against all his relatives. Thereafter, Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord who had spoken to her. She said, you are the God who seeks me. She also said, have I truly been the one who sees me? So that well was named Beer Lahairoi, which means well of the living one who sees me. It can still be found between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar gave Abram a son, and Abram named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Serve me faithfully and live a blameless life. I will make a covenant with you by which I will guarantee to give you countless descendants. At this, Abraham fell down on the ground. Then God said to him, this is my covenant with you. I will make you the father of a multitude of nations. What's more, I am changing your name. It will no longer be Abram. Instead, you will be called Abraham. Open your heart and embrace the gift of today. Live out God's purpose from sunrise to sunset. And guys, this is the last page of Genesis. Ishmael was the son of Abraham and an Egyptian slave named Hagar. God promised Hagar that Ishmael would be the father of 12 princes. According to the ancient traditions, Ishmael was the father of the Arab nations. For you, I will be the father of many nations. I will make you extremely fruitful. Your descendants will become many nations, and kings will be among them. I will confirm my covenant with you and your descendants after you, from generation to generation. This is the everlasting covenant. I will always be your God and the God of your descendants after you, and I will give the entire land of Canaan, where you now live as a foreigner, to you and your descendants. It will be their possession forever, and I will be their God. Then God said to Abraham, your responsibility is to obey the terms of the covenant. You and all your descendants have this continual responsibility. This is the covenant that you and your descendants must keep. Each male among you must be circumcised. Okay. You must cut off the flesh of your foreskin as a sign of the covenant between me and you. From generation to generation, every male child must be circumcised on the 8th day after his birth. This applies not only to members of your family, but also to the servants born in your household, and the foreign-born servants whom you have purchased. All must be circumcised. Your bodies will bear the mark of my everlasting covenant. Any male who fails to be circumcised will be cut off from the covenant family for breaking the covenant. Then God said to Abram, regarding Sarai, your wife, her name will no longer be Sarai. From now on, her name will be Sarah, and I will bless her and give you a son from her. Yes, I will bless her richly and she will become the mother of many nations. Kings of nations will be among her descendants. Then Abraham bowed down to the ground, but he laughed to himself in disbelief. How could I become a father at the age of 100? He thought. And how can Sarah have a baby when she's 90 years old? So Abram said to God, May Ishmael live under your special blessing. But God replied, No, Sarah your wife will give birth to a son for you. You will name him Isaac. And I will confirm my covenant within him and his descendants as an everlasting covenant. As for Ishmael, I will bless him also, just as you have asked. I will make him extremely fruitful and multiply his descendants. He will become the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will be confirmed with Isaac, who will be born to you in Sarai about this time next year. When God had finished speaking, he left Abraham. On that very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael and every male in the household, including those born there, and he had brought. Then he circumcised them, cutting off their foreskin, just as God had told him. Abram was 99 years old. Oh, we're still in Genesis, guys. This is just about Sarah. Okay. Do you worry about how you look and what other people think about you? Do you spend a lot of time trying to dress and act like the cool girls? Let's meet the beautiful Sarai, whose name God later changed to Sarah. Sarah learned firsthand that beauty does not guarantee happiness. Sarah was blessed with remarkable beauty at her birth. Her proud parents named her Sarai, meaning princess. But being pretty isn't everything. In fact, Sarah found that being pretty as a princess wasn't always a good thing. For instance, in Genesis 12, Sarah was traveling with her husband, Abram. Their caravan encountered the powerful Egyptian Pharaoh and his massive military. Immediately, the king wanted the beautiful Sarah for himself and took her into his house. But God came to the rescue. The Lord sent terrible plagues upon Pharaoh and his household because of Sarah. True beauty is a matter of the heart. So make sure your heart is focused on God. As Solomon wrote, charm is deceptive and beauty does not last. But a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised. Proverbs 31:30. Thank God that He made you wonderfully special. His workmanship is marvelous. So you are beautiful in His eyes exactly as you are. Psalms 139, verse 14. Okay. Abram was 99 years old when he was circumcised. And Ishmael, his son, was 13. Both Abram and his son Ishmael were circumcised on that same day, along with other men and boys of the household, whether they were born there or bought as servants. All were circumcised with him. A son is promised Sarah. The Lord appeared again to Abraham near the oak grove belonging to Mamre. One day, Abram was sitting at the entrance to his tent during the hottest part of the day. He looked up and noticed 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he ran to meet them and welcomed them. Bowing low to the ground, "My Lord," he said, "if it please you, stop here for a while. Rest in the shade of this tree while water is brought to wash your feet. And since you've honored your servant with this visit, let me prepare some food to refresh you before you continue on your journey." "All right," they said. "Do as you have said." So Abraham ran back to the tent and said, "Sarah, hurry, get 3 large measures of your best flour, knead it into dough, and bake some bread. Then Abram set out of the herd and chose a tender calf and gave it to his servant, who quickly prepared it. When the food was ready, Abram took some yogurt and milk, and he roasted meat, and he served it to the man. As they ate, Abram waited on them in the shade of the trees. "Where is Sarah, your wife?" the visitors asked. "She's inside the tent," Abraham replied. Then one of them said, "I will return to you about this time next year, and your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah was listening to this conversation from the tent. Abraham and Sarah were both very old by this time, and Sarah was long past the age of having children. So she laughed silently to herself and said, "How could a worn-out woman like me enjoy such a pleasure, especially when my master, my husband, is also old?" The Lord said to Abram, "Why did Sarah laugh? Why did she say, 'Can an old woman like me have a baby?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return about this time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was afraid, so she denied it, saying, "I didn't laugh." But the Lord said, "No, you did laugh." Then the men got up from their meal and looked out towards Sodom. As they left Abraham went with them to send them on their way. "Should I hide my plan from Abram?" the Lord asked. "For Abram will certainly become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed through him. I have signaled him out so that he will direct his sons and their families to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. Then I will do for Abraham all that I have promised." So the Lord told Abraham, "I have heard a great outcry from Sodom and Gomorrah, because their sin is so flagrant. I am going to see if their actions are as wicked as I have heard. If not, I want to know." The other men turned and headed towards Sodom, but the Lord remained with Abraham. Abraham approached him and said, "Will you sweep away both the righteous and the wicked? Suppose you find 50 righteous people living in the city. Will you still sweep it away and not spare it for their sakes? Surely you wouldn't do such a thing, destroying the righteous along with the wicked. Why would you be treating the righteous and the wicked exactly the same? Surely you wouldn't do that. Should not judge of all the earth do what is right?" And the Lord replied, "If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the entire city for their sake." Then Abram spoke again, "Since I have begun, let me speak farther to my Lord, even though I am but dust and ashes. Suppose there are only 45 righteous people rather than 50. Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? The Lord said, "I will not destroy it if I find 45 righteous people there." Then Abram pressed his request further. "Suppose there are only 40. And the Lord replied, "I will not destroy it for the sake of the 40. "Please don't be angry, my Lord," Abram pleaded. "Let me speak. Suppose only 30 righteous people are found." The Lord replied, "I will not destroy it if I find 30. The Abram said, "Since I have dared to speak to the Lord, let me continue. Suppose there are only 20. The Lord replied, "Then I will not destroy it for the sake of the 20. Finally, Abram said, "Lord, please don't be angry with me if I speak one more time. Suppose only 10 are found there." And the Lord replied, "Then I will not destroy it for the sake of the 10. When the Lord had finished his conversation with Abram, he went on his way, and Abram returned to his tent. That evening, the 2 angels came to the entrance of the city of Sodom. Lot was sitting there, and when he saw them, he stood up to meet them. Then he welcomed them and bowed with his face to the ground. "My lords," he said, "come to my home to wash your feet and be my guest for the night." You may then get up early in the morning and be on your way again." "Oh, no," they replied. "We'll just spend the night out of here in the city square." But Lot insisted. So at last they went home with him. Lot prepared a feast for them, complete with fresh bread made without yeast, and they ate. Before they retired for the night, all of the men of Sodom, young and old, came from all over the city and surrounded the house. They shouted to Lot, "Where are the men who came to spend the night with you? Bring them out to us so we can have sex with them." Whoa. So Lot stepped outside to talk to them, shutting the door behind him. "Please, my brothers," he begged, "don't do such a wicked thing. Look, I have 2 virgin daughters. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do with them as you wish. But please leave these men alone, for they are my guests and are under my protection." "Stand back," they shouted. This fellow came to town as an outsider, and now he's acting like our judge. We'll treat you far worse than those other men." And they laughed toward Lot to break down the door. But the 2 angels reached out, pulled Lot into the house, and bolted the door. Then they blinded all the men, young and old, who were at the door of the house, so they gave up trying to get inside. Meanwhile, the angels questioned Lot. "Do you have any other relatives here in the city?" they asked. "Get them out of this place. Your sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or anyone else. For we are about to destroy this city completely." The outcry against this place is so great that it has reached the Lord, and he has sent us to destroy it. So Lot rushed out to tell his daughter's fiancé, "Quick, get out of the city. The Lord is about to destroy it." But the young man thought he was only joking. This is a lot, y'all. This is a lot. I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to come back a little bit later today. So, thanks for watching.